All right, welcome back. It is still News Up. We're diving straight into our very first conversation, which borders on the economy. Yes, it is no longer news that Nigeria is thriving to attain a $1 trillion economy by 2030. In that line, we have also seen an instruction from the Central Bank of Nigeria to all deposit money banks to recapitalize. We have for national recapitalization, national banks licenses. It's about 500 billion naira. So on the show today, we are looking at how the banks can, how the banks recapitalization can help achieve the $1 trillion economy as proposed by Mr. President. Yes, Bamidele Ayemibo is a trade expert and also an international finance expert. Joins us right about now on the show. So good to have you on the show, Bamidele. Dr. Bamidele Ayemibo. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Very well, thank you. Well, I'm looking for the perfect place to kickstart this conversation, and I think a good place will be the recapitalization by the banks, instruction by the Central Bank of Nigeria, how the banks have been able to move towards being able to meet the 2026 deadline as given by the Central Bank. What have you seen? Do you have any sense of assurance that the banks will indeed be able to recapitalize by the deadline which comes up in 2026?
Yes, I mean, a number of them are moving in that direction, and some of them are very close. But what I foresee is, like it happened during the Soludo era, we might see some mergers coming into force at the end of the day. And like it happened that time that the number of banks were significantly reduced from 70-something to 20-something. Now we have about 30-something banks. Maybe we might see it reduce, maybe like half of them. But the information about that are not really very much in public domain, but there are indications around the fact that we might be seeing some major execution. So for those that are not able to achieve it, of course they will merge and then they will be able to continue at their business. But the idea, I think, make a lot of sense because, like you said, if you are going to achieve the $1 trillion economy, then we definitely need the bank to come and support and make that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Ayemibo. Nigerian banks, I can assure you, have some kind of, an average Nigerian businessman is not particularly excited about the kinds of support that they get from banks in Nigeria. I mean, let's not pretend about it. And that's because, of course, a lot of factors, one of which is interest rates, for example. And perhaps the areas of interest of most of the banks. And people have said the banks that could have done much more in terms of supporting businesses and investing in areas that can actually help to develop the economy. What do you make of this type of opinion?
That's very correct. But I think the bank is also learning their lessons. There's something I discovered that happened within the banking sector right now. Before COVID, there are challenges with consumer lending, with consumer loan, with loan to small businesses. There are issues around, they are risky, you can't trust them, you lose money. And of course, banks have lost money lending to this. But the fintech guys came in and they were able to design algorithms that were able to help separate the serious from the unserious business people and individual in lending. And they are able to begin to lend with consumer loan to individuals and small businesses, and they were having in some cases, less than 1% non-performing loan. Suddenly, the banks begin to see that, it seems as if there are opportunity here. And today, banks are doing the same. I don't know if you get that, you get a message from your bank, and the bank is saying you are qualified for so amount as consumer loan. If you say yes, and then you'll be credited within 24 hours. Because the fintech guy came in and showed that, look, in as much as this is a risky space, but we can dimension the risk and separate the serious from the unserious. That's exactly what they've done, and they are successful in it. And the big commercial bank who could do this and have what it takes to do it are then copying this fintech now, and we're seeing increased consumer lending among a number of banks to be able to ensure that funds get into where it's needed, and of course the people also have the ability to pay back. So I see a change in narrative and improvement in that space, but that is being leveraged on with the advancement of technology.
All right, many would also argue with you that that is not completely very correct because the real sector is also still being starved of funds, and the conversation is still on the fact that if government must attain this 1 trillion naira, then we must ensure that the small and medium scale enterprises, which are the engine of growth in any economy are well funded, and we don't see this happen. The whole essence of a $1 trillion economy is for stability, is for financial stability, is for the economy to be able to withstand any global shocks. But then that seems to be like the only primary focus. Many would have thought that develop the real sector, then you would have a buffer for any global shock.
You're right. You know, I talked about consumer lending. That consumer lending has I was answering your colleague's question. That consumer lending has a threshold. There's a maximum because of exposure. What you're saying is very correct. And one of the reasons driving what you're saying is the fact that the interest rates right now are very, very high. After an event on Monday, and the president of Man was saying they aggregated their cost of power. I think for last year, it was over 1 trillion naira for power alone, which consumed about 20 to 30% of their cost. They now added on it again the cost of borrowing, under 30-something%. So you have about 30% for power, about 30% for lending. What is left? So I agree with you what you're saying, and that's why it's important that the government do something serious to support the manufacturing sector. You know, I've been using this example that China is doing. You know, with what is happening with the tariff, look at what China has decided to do. Because they know, they are very much aware of the fact that, look, this is going to be a challenge for them. They are significantly relying on the US market. The export of China is about 3 trillion. About 500 billion of that export is going to US alone. US now have increased their tariff. It's even now over 100%. It's becoming so ridiculous. They know that, look, they can't continue this way. They're not looking for other markets. Look at what they've done. They are getting the provinces to lend to the manufacturer because manufacturing must continue. They know if manufacturing stops in China, there will be job losses. The government cannot contain the crisis. Manufacturing must continue. So what do? They are giving single-digit loans to businesses, very low interest loans. But more importantly is export credit insurance. Because if you look at the formula for calculating GDP, you have the the consumption level, plus the investment, plus the government spending, and then export minus import. And what China has done is to significantly increase the export. And to do this, they are not giving their businesses export credit insurance. So two things they are doing. They are increasing funding at a cheaper rate to be able to ensure production continue and is increasing, and helping their businesses to make more profit. But more importantly, they are saying go into new market, go into new market. When you get into this market, if you have issue with your payment, we will give you an insurance. They are insuring the exporters, giving them export credit insurance, because if they are going to go into new market, that will increase their exposure, that will increase their risk. The government say go ahead and do it. We will support you. If you have issue with your payment, the government will support and the government will go after the money. Those are the things we are not seeing for Nigeria. And that's why I said I believe the bank can help to drive the $1 trillion economic capitalization, but if they are not able to lend in a way that is very, very, get a lot of funding into the private sector to be in a way that is profitable for them, then we might not be able to achieve that. So I agree with you the fact that we're not seeing it in the real sector. I'm talking about the consumer loan that your colleague mentioned.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Emibo. Just now, we're talking about how the banks can help drive the $1 trillion economy. And in the course of that conversation, you've talked about how government now needs to intervene to support the manufacturing sector, you know, to achieve that. My question would be, how come we're back to government again? Now look at this. The power sector, after the unbundling, there were quite a number of interventions and what they call bailout at the time. You know, but as we speak, we still haven't gotten the desired result from all of the investment that government has made in the power sector. So why do we talk about government again?
Because the government have deep pockets to support the private sector. We just are finding ourselves in a very precarious situation in Nigeria in which the government are not living up to their responsibilities expected by the citizens. But we really cannot take government out of this equation because the support for many countries that have been able to grow, because it's the government that want to grow the GDP. It's the government that have the vision to grow the GDP. It's the plan of it. So if the government is going to grow the GDP to 1 trillion, then there must be a plan to make it happen. So we can't take government out of this equation. The government must be involved. And there must be sincerity of purpose to ensure that this is done. But of course, the government cannot do it alone. It must be in a conjunction and with support with the private sector. The president also talked about the windfall of the bank and the fact that this fund, because they calculated how much real sector lost, the manufacturing sector lost in loan because of the exchange rate, and how much the bank made as windfall, and it's almost seems like just about 10% different, meaning the money being lost in one sector goes to another sector. And they're saying government is giving them the windfall tax. Why can't the government use this to support the private sector, since they are the one that is losing the money that some other people are making? Meaning the government should support the private sector even with interest-free loan. Why? This is what people are doing to grow the private sector. Because we definitely must manufacture. We need to increase non-oil export. If we're going to increase non-oil export, value-added non-oil export, which will give us the forest we need, because we cannot be exporting only commodities. We need to do value addition, which will require manufacturing. We cannot exclude the government. The government must come in to be able to support, because the government has the deep pocket and the finances to do so. So we really cannot leave government out of the situation. What we must now do is to hold the government accountable to be able to do what they say they will do, and to ensure the money, when released, does not go into the wrong hands.
Ayemibo, in line with this conversation is the fact that many people are not even looking at concerns around discipline. Fiscal discipline on the side of government and even on the sides of the banks themselves. It's one thing to recapitalize to 500 billion naira, and it's another thing to be disciplined in the management of this money. Doesn't this come as a concern for you, Ayemibo?
On the part of the bank, that's for the CBN to ensure, because you are very correct. We've had this in the past. There was recapitalization, and then Hanusi came in and had to actually arrest and prosecute, I think, about 4 or 5 bank MDs who actually eventually became reckless and were doing a lot of things with the fund because they have a lot of funds at their disposal. But this will be the job of the CBN, and I believe currently the current management of CBN seems to be very, very, very serious. From what we see so far, they are not joking at all as far as ensuring financial stability is concerned and ensuring that the bank do what they need to do. So I really do not see a situation where what happened before within the financial sector is going to happen again if the current trajectory we are seeing with the CBN continue.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ayemibo. Again, I want to talk about the power sector, as a catalyst, to driving the economy, generally speaking. If you support the manufacturing sector, they will still have to go through all that they went through, spending about 30% or thereabout, like you said, on power. So how about, what kinds of intervention, for example, would you recommend for the power sector? Because we've all agreed that if that sector is able to sit right, a lot will happen to the economy from the informal sector to the formal sector.
Liberalization of the sector for private sector to come in and set up. But first of all, while that development is going on, the government must of necessity support the private sector with interest-free loans, so that will be the government contributions for the inefficiencies of the government to provide power. But we must privatize. The kind of stuff we are seeing with group power plants, the kind of stuff we are seeing with the other power plants now being run by private sector. I'm talking about the GENCOs now. We must privatize, and there are also important investment in the transmission line, the TCN. There are a lot of talk around the fact that the TCN should be privatized, because it seems as if now it's in the hand of government, and it seems as if they are not very, very efficient. The DISCO are complaining about the fact that GENCO are saying they are not able to get all they are generating to get to the people. Because we are still exporting power, by the way. Because GENCO are generating and exporting power. But the TCN is not able to get it across to the disco or distribute to the people. So we're in a situation where we need private sector investment. You know, the beauty of the private sector is the cost will go up, no doubt, but you will have more power. Now, the beauty is that at the end of the day, it will still be cheaper for the private, for the manufacturers to be able to use the power, even when it's high. It's still cheaper for them at the end of the day, because they won't have to deal with diesel or petrol to be able to generate power, or gas. Rather, they depend on electricity, which is a lot cheaper for them at the end of the day. But in the meantime, while that is being done, because it must go to private, and we've seen it for over the years. I mean, government have been in it, and we see where we are. We must, and then more importantly, it seems to me that there are cartels within this sector. Look at the people benefiting from lack of power in Nigeria. People that import generator, big generator, and people that repair it. People that import small generator, and people that repair it. People that are selling petrol, people that are selling diesel. You have about 6-7 constituencies, and benefiting from the economy of inefficiency of power in Nigeria. The government must do something about what we need to do to assist people in that sector. I strongly believe there are also a lot of sabotage to frustrate the effort of the government to ensure this sector does not thrive, because if it thrives, some other people are going to suffer. So if these people have come into this sector to help provide support for power because of inefficiency of government cannot come and solve that problem without making a provision for how it's going to engage those people to come in. Either in the value chain, there must be something that needs to be done about this. Else, we might continue all around it. But more importantly, also to ensure this also go into the private hand to run efficiently, because they are profit driven and they will ensure they generate profit. And they will have power. And then, of course, it becomes easier for you to manage your power. There are concerns about, people in Band 8 about the fact that the cost is high. In developed nations,
yes,
you go to some countries, if you are in a room and the light is on and people move out of that, after 5 minutes the light goes off. We must develop mechanism to reduce the way we use power. It seems as if we are used to lack of power, that even when people now have more power because the cost is high, complain. I would rather we have power and then you reduce your usage to reduce your cost, rather than complain about the fact we have a lot of power. But we are talking about the real sector now. Private sector must come into support, and the government must do something to help people already in the sector, maybe in importing some of the materials that will help in the sector. There must be something going to them, else we might continue to see the sabotage we are seeing within that sector.
Dr. Bamidele, I'm sure you also realize that the discos are also private sector investors.
Yes.
So the question right now is, it's not just about private sector investor. It's about due diligence in which private sector players are, and then having a rule. Laid down rule of engagement for the private sector. The discos were supposed to invest a certain amount of money into the sector, which they never did. Rather, they were getting interventions and bailouts from the same government that sold the property, that sold the power sector to them. So I don't know. I think a lot has to be done around due diligence from the managers of these sectors.
I agree with you, but look at we have the GENCOs, generating company, we have the transmission company, and we have the DISCO. The DISCOs is at the mercy of the transmission company. Even the Ministry of Power confirmed the fact that we need to invest more in the transmission of what the GENCO is generating. So it's not just about the DISCO. Of course, what you said about the DISCO is very correct, about the fact that they need to do more investment to be able to get the power down to the people. But more importantly is the fact that we are not even having enough from the generation down to the distribution, which is what I was talking about, the fact that we need to find a way to dismantle the transmission company of Nigeria and get private sector in, so that there can be more investment, so that as the power is generated, a significant chunk of it can get to the DISCO and of course get to the consumer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bamidele Ayemibo. For all you care, for me, the discos are inefficient, lazy, and exploitative, because that's what we've seen with estimated billings and all whatnot across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Thank you indeed, Dr. Bamidele Ayemibo. He is a financial business trade expert. Thank you for your time on the show today.
Thank you for having me, and bye-bye.